Well, guys, it is Sunday here with Journey Family, and I told you earlier we got a special guest today. Some of you have met Lance before. You have seen him a few months back. He came in do our weekly Zooms. What a powerful teaching he shared. And we were chatting this past week, and I said, Lance, you need to come on and share that word. Share that word, what we're transitioning into, what we got to leave behind, and what we got to pursue. Because I remember when he shared it, guys, it brought fire into the room. Literally, people were feeling the witness of that message. And Lance, to be honest, we've had some amazing teachers on those Wednesday nights, and everybody comes back to your Wednesday night. I felt it was a now word. And so, brother, I'm just so happy that you're here, and welcome to the Cayman Islands, virtually at least. Good morning. Good morning.
Wow.
How is it in Lodi? I know you're from Lodi. How is it over there right now?
And Lodi is hot right now. Yeah, we're hovering around 100 degrees, and it's a little warm, a little toasty here.
Little toasty. Well, Cayman is getting hot too. And for those of you, Lance is going to introduce a little bit more of his church and his mission and vision, and he'll swing into the word. I don't want to hold any more time for you, but brother, thank you for making time. Guys, prepare your hearts. It's going to be a now word. Lance, it's all yours, brother.
Awesome. Well, hey, what an honor, what a privilege to be here with you guys, and I've been looking forward to this moment. And let me just tell you guys, I get the privilege to travel and meet a lot of people and meet a lot of leaders, and you guys are very blessed to have Pastor Felix and Dorothy lead the way there at Journey Church. And I'm not just saying that because I'm here. I wouldn't say it, period. I would just, hey, what's up, and get into it. But they're phenomenal people, and I'm getting to know their heart more and more. And they love you, and they love the local church, and they love people. And if I wasn't pastoring Inspire, I'd commute there every week to be there with you to serve the vision. But no, it's an honor to be here, and I truly mean that. And so thank you, Pastor Felix, for having me this morning. And I'm so looking forward to what God is doing in our relationship. I feel like we're family. I feel like Inspire and Journey, we're family. There was a quick connection, and it's an unusually quick connection. And I know when God begins to do something like that, he's up to something. I know the Father is up to something. And I have this holy hunch that the Father is up to something. And we get to figure out what that something is. And so I love that God is building the relationship aspect to this because we believe in leading with relationship before we step into anything. Because, hey, if anything else doesn't work, we still have relationship, because the kingdom is about relationship. So I'm blessed for this, and it's been just a refreshing time to get to know you and your family, and share with some of the leaders at Journey Church. And there's something very special happening. I truly believe that Journey is in the shallows of something very special. And this is why. Because you've been so faithful with the little, because you've never sought the stage, because you've been faithful with what God has brought to the table, and you've never complained. You just keep showing up, you keep doing what God's called you to do, you remain faithful, you pour out, you pour out, you pour out. And I really believe this is the pour into season for you and your leaders in the house and everybody that calls this their family. So I would say to you, in the words of the great T.D. Jakes, get ready, get ready, get ready for the greatest season that Journey Church has ever experienced in the history of this young church, and for such a time as this. And if I were there with you, and standing there in the midst with you, and I can't wait to do that someday so we can hug and pound and high five and all that fun stuff. But if I were there, I would do this, okay? This is what I would do. I would say, hey, guys, do me a favor and turn to your neighbor. And you look at that neighbor, and you tell that neighbor that they look absolutely incredible. But say it like you mean it, okay? Like you mean it. Now I want you to do something else with me. Turn to your second choice. Your second choice. And you tell them, hey, you know what? Nobody's left out in the kingdom. You look good too. You look good too. And I think part of the kingdom is having fun. It's laughing. I believe joy and laughter, it's medicine to the soul. And we need that aspect of the kingdom in this hour right now. In fact, I was getting ready for this. I wanted to look good for y'all. I wanted to make sure my hair was right, that the shave was correct. I wanted, because I don't want to let you down, okay? I want to look good. And so I'm in the bathroom getting ready, right? Doing the hair, all that good stuff, shaving up, and my wife walks in. And this is what she said, Pastor Felix, Journey Church. She said, honey, you got the body of a God. Guys, I don't know. If you're a married man, when your wife tells you that, it's like, oh, snap. you like suck it in. You're like, come on, girl. She finally sees it. She finally gets it. And I said, tell me that again, baby girl. She said, you got the body of a God. And I was like, oh, man. She says, Buddha. And I went, oh, snap, Buddha. And I don't know. I'd like to have a little bit of fun, but we'll dive into it. And right now, I don't have to like convince you that we're in some crazy times. We are in probably the craziest times that we've ever experienced. And here's the thing. It's not just in a particular place. It's international. There's nobody, there's no season or city, there's no region, there's no place, no country that has not been affected by what we're in right now. And there's a powerful passage of scripture in 1 Chronicles 12:32. Now, I know you've read it and you've heard it, but I want to use this as the launching pad to go where I believe the Lord wants to take us this morning. And it says this is from the tribe of Issachar. These were men that understood the times and they knew what Israel should do. Right now, it is essential. It is important that we as children of God, we as kingdom people, we understand the time in which we live, the season that we are here on earth, the season that we find ourselves in right now. I'm going to pause for a minute. And I just want you to think about this. This blew my mind the other day. I was driving, and God likes to speak to me when I'm driving, and he downloaded this thought. He could have inserted me into any place of the timeline of history, but he chose right now to insert my gifts, insert my grace into this time slot of history. Think about that. He's done the same for you. The fact that we are here together, right, having church as a family this morning, he, for some reason, chose right now to insert all of us into this time slot of history. Think about that. He could have done it 100 years ago, 300 years ago, 2,000 years ago, or he could have waited for 50 more years. But he didn't. He put us right here, right now in this time slot. And I began to think about it. I'm like, Father, what do you see in me that I need to see in me? Like if you're going to put me, you're going to put us into this time space when, the world has gone crazy and the world needs to see you and the world needs answers and the world needs a prophetic answer and the world needs the church more than ever, then why did you put me here? Let me see what you see in me. And my prayer, Journey Church, is that you would see what the Father sees in you, that you would not question your abilities. You would not question your gift. You would not question the grace that's on your life. And you would understand you are a strategic weapon for such a time as this, that God is pulling out of his tool belt, his kingdom tool belt, to use for this very hour. All that to say this: God needs you more than ever to step up to the stage that this pandemic has become, to be the voice of heaven, the voice of the King. And I thought about that, and it just blew my mind. And I pray that it just rocks your world as you begin to meditate on that for such a time as this. But the men of Issachar had an understanding of the time. And because of that, they were able to be strategic. Oftentimes, we misdiagnose what God is doing because we try to diagnose it by what we see in this season. Sometimes it's summer in heaven and it's winter on earth. The season we're experiencing in the present doesn't always necessarily match the season it is in the kingdom. So it's important that we are always in communication with the Father. What season is it? What season is it? Because every season bears fruit of its own kind. So some of us, we misdiagnose what God is doing because we're out of season. It is time to get in season, time to get alignment with God so we can bear the fruit in this season that only this season can produce. So I've learned this a long time ago, that God is so okay with our questions. He's not intimidated by our questions. In fact, our questions honor him. In fact, when we come to him humbly and ask him, it's us telling him that he has something that we don't have that we need to have. It means we still believe he's the answer. We still believe he's the way. We still believe that he's almighty. We actually still believe that he is who he says he is. So He honors, he loves our questions. He's honored by our questions. So I've learned that if I want to get the right answers, I got to ask the right questions. And so with that, the last several years, we're talking about the times in which we're in, I can define it with one word: transition. Transition. And it started about 2 years, maybe 2.5 years ago, and we're going into the third year of it. And every year we would start the year off with one of my good friends, we co-pastor Matt Gonzalez. I know he's been there with you. The guy can prophesy a little bit, and but because he has good friends like Felix and I, that's what I'm saying. He kind of hears God. So I would always bring Matt in and say, Matt, what's the word for the year? What are you feeling as the prophet of the house? And, we would lean into that and pray. And I remember 2 years ago, he said, and little did we know what it would mean and look like and how it would manifest. But he said transition. It was the year of transition. And it made sense. It brought language to everything we were experiencing. And it just seemed like everybody and everything for that year was in transition, transition, transition. Little did we know that would be the year that Matt would transition out and move to Vacaville, and it was a massive transition. He had no idea at that time, but God did. So we get into the next year, the following year, last year, and I begin to seek the Lord. Lord, what's the word? What's this year about? This is 2019. He said transition. I'm like, oh my gosh. And I'm at the point, like, if I hear transition one more time as a pastor, because it seemed like everybody was coming to me, transition, transition, transition. I'm like, if one more person comes into my office and says, Pastor, I just feel there's transition. I mean, I was probably going to just, well, I won't even tell you what I was thinking, but you can understand. I mean, everybody. Now, I want to stop for a minute before I go any further. Sadly, in the kingdom, sadly in the church, transition has a negative connotation to it. I don't know about you, but one thing I've noticed, Christians are very unusually suspicious. So what do I mean by that? I'm in transition. So if I tell you I'm in transition, right, and I do it with a smile on my face, right, you're probably going to think, oh, what did he do? What went wrong? Somebody messed up. Somebody got fired. See, it carries a negative connotation with it. Now, I want us to get this. This is so important because the season we're in, because 2020, guess what? It was continued transition. It was continued transition. So for about 3 years now, we've been in this thing called transition. Now, here's where I want to just hit for a minute. I want us to get this. We have to get this. We don't get this, then we don't get it, but we need to. Most people are misdiagnosed in the transition, right? Because they don't understand the season and time in which we live. They don't understand the season. So therefore, they misdiagnose transition. Because transition usually means this: I'm leaving a bad thing for a good thing. I'm leaving something that's not working for something that might work better. See, God, that's that, and there is a time for that, but oftentimes, but because we're not looking for it, because our mind's trained, we have our mind, our belief system that says, oh, it's negative, something's up, something happened. It had to be bad. There must have been a fight or conflict, right? Unhealthy confrontation or something. We go there rather than looking for God in it. And because of that, we so often miss God. And if we don't understand the time and what God is doing, there's a chance, and this haunts me, that we may miss what God is doing in this hour, in this very moment that he chose to put us here on earth. So there's transition going on, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. It very well could be a God thing. And I want to prophetically declare most of this transition is God. It's God. It's God rearranging his house. It's God putting people where they need to be. It's God putting his sons and daughters in the right position for such a time as this. Because a lot of the church has been out of position. We got some pastors that need to be apostles and some apostles that need to be teachers. We got some senior pastors that need to be youth pastors. We got people out of position. We got pastors that need to be in the marketplace. So God is getting everything in order. He's rearranging the seats. Transition. Now I want to make it clear. It doesn't mean you're leaving. To be in transition doesn't mean you're going to go to Pastor Felix and say, I'm transitioning. If you're feeling transition in your spirit, the first thing you have to do is go to the Father and say, what is this about? What is this about? Because if you follow the trail of someone else, it means you might leave a place you're supposed to stay. Okay? It may mean that you're changing your position on the bus. It may mean the grace that you had in a particular season to do whatever it is you were doing has lifted, but you're going to be on the same bus, but now you're going to be in the driver's seat or the co-pilot seat or somewhere else or the mechanic or whatever else. I hope you get what I'm saying this morning, right? So transition isn't a negative thing, but unless we have eyes to see what God is doing and ears to hear what he's speaking, we can miss it and misdiagnose it. So over the last 3 years, another thing that I've noticed is there's been a violent shaking. Now, I don't know about you, but I call it violent because I feel it. Everything that can be shook is being shook. My belief system, my thoughts, my methodologies, my systems, my theology's getting shook. Everything that can be shook is being shook. Now, again, if it goes misdiagnosed, this shaking that's happening across the body, because I ask a lot of people, anytime I go out and speak, hey, what are you feeling? Man, I'm being shook. I'm being severely shook. Everything's being shook. But life as I've known it is being shook. Relationships are being shook. My marriage is being shook. Everything is being shook that could be shook. Now, here's the thing. If we have the wrong mindset and we don't understand the time as the men of Issachar, guess what? We can misdiagnose this shaking as the enemy. A lot of people are trying to bind up and cast out the shaking. And God's saying, I'm trying to get you where you're supposed to be. I'm trying to get you in position for what's coming. See, not always is the shaking a bad thing. Oftentimes, it's a God thing. So I want to declare to you, the shaking that you may be feeling in your spirit, it's from God. It's from God. And I'll get to more of that in a minute. And I was driving home from the office one day. Now, we live in Lodi, California. Now, that's about 20 miles south of Sacramento. You probably have heard of Sacramento. You probably never heard of Lodi. Most people call it Lodi. It's not Lodi, it's Lodi, okay? And so that's where we live. It's very much central, located in the valley, where literally you can see the mountain ranges on each side, and we're kind of like right in the middle. We have very fertile soil. Things grow in our valley, okay? And so we export. We're the wine grape capital of the entire world. We export more wine grapes than anybody in the world. That's kind of where we're at because things grow here. So it's very ag-oriented. To give you a backdrop, I'm driving through the back roads, which means there's vineyards, there's cherry trees, almond trees, there's orchards everywhere. And I saw something. I've done this drive for years. And this particular day, not long ago, I saw something that just like hijacked my attention. It was an almond field orchard that I would drive through regularly, and I've done so for years. But this time I saw something happening I never saw. It was like this massive machine. Like a tractor, but it was thinner than a tractor, and it had these massive like arms that were on a hydraulic, and it so much had my attention that I pulled over to watch what this thing was doing because I'd never seen this particular piece of equipment. And so I'm watching, and what I noticed was these arms extended out, and it put its arms, or these hooks, these hands, if you will, around the base, the trunk of these almond trees, and it began to violently shake the tree. I mean, and shake it to the point where, I mean, you could see it was blurry. It was shaking so hard. And I began to see two things happen. All the almonds began to fall off the tree. So if you ever wondered how you get fruit off the tree, it's often it's shook, right? And maybe God is shaking us to get the fruit off our tree to get it where it's supposed to be, right? Because we're not supposed to hold on to our fruit. Our fruit is supposed to bring someone else pleasure and set other people free and meet someone else's need, but that's not what I'm talking about. But I seen the almonds shake off. And then another thing happened. About 2 to 3 minutes later, after the almonds were off the tree, all the dead branches and leaves began to fall off. And it blew my mind. And in that very moment, I don't know how God speaks to you, but I heard God speak in my spirit. This is what I heard. He said, son, that is a picture of what I'm doing right now in this very hour to the church. This is what I'm doing in the church. I'm shaking the church. I'm shaking the church. Because there's the third thing that happens when the shaking happens is also, if you're trying to uproot a tree and move a tree and transplant or transition a tree, right? You know what you have to do? You have to loosen the roots, because those trees don't grow overnight. Those trees have been there for more than a minute. Those trees have been there for decades. And if you want to transplant it or remove it, the roots are so deep, you have to come in with these machines and violently shake it to get the roots loosened up. And God said, that's what I'm doing in my church. I'm shaking. Again, I had to ask the Lord, what's up with this transition? What's up with this shaking? Why did I ask? Because you don't get answers unless you ask. So I hope that helps you in this season, gives you an understanding, and that you're not weird and you're not off, and you know that the shaking you're feeling is not possibly, it could be the enemy, but just ask God or ask your leadership what they think. But I think more times than not, it's actually God in this particular hour. I don't think it's the enemy. So stop binding what God is trying to do. Stop trying to, pray against it and lean into it and submit to it. But it's understanding the time in which we live. Now, I want to look at Exodus 2, verse 21 through 23. And I'm going to look at the life of Moses for a minute. This was a season of transition for him. Okay? And again, we're in a crazy time right now. We all are experiencing the pandemic as we speak. Some people, it's lifted, mostly, and things are opened up. Where we live in California, it was good again for a minute. And then just this week, they shut the church back down as far as attending inside the church. Okay? You can't meet in homes. I mean, you have to wear masks. It's mandatory. I mean, it's just, we're going back to phase 1 and lockdowns and all that stuff. But here's the deal. You can't stop the church. We have to understand this. Now, we love getting together. We love fellowshipping. We love hugging. Man, look at me. I love a good potluck. Come on, somebody. I do, right? We love that aspect. But here's the deal. You can't stop the church. Now, what can happen is you can change how you've been doing church, but you can't stop the church, because the church is rooted in the king, and we are kingdom people, and you can't just put church on pause. You can quit the church, but you can't stop the church. The church isn't going to stop because we can't meet together behind some doors and sing a few songs and have a okay message and then go back and do it again. No, that doesn't stop the church, but here we are. We're all part of this. We're all experiencing this. And I want to look at Moses' life, and we'll be done. Okay, then you can go have lunch and get some fish tacos for a brother. Okay, do that for me. If this message blesses you, go get some fresh fish tacos, and then tell me all about it. Okay, Exodus 2:21. It says Moses accepted the invitation, and he settled there with him. In time, Reuel gave Moses his daughter Zipporah to be his wife. Later, she gave birth to a son, and Moses named him Gershom. For he explained, I have been a foreigner in a foreign land. See, that's crazy. Moses kind of expressed how he was feeling. He felt like a foreigner in a foreign place. He felt out of place. He felt displaced. He felt disconnected, right? It says he named his son Gershom because he felt like a foreigner in a foreign land. Verse 23, it says, years had passed and the king of Egypt died, but the Israelites continued to groan under their burden of slavery. They cried out for help, and their cry eventually reached God. So much there, and I'm not going to unpack it too much, but I'm just going to extract a couple things here that we have to get. Okay? It says that Moses was in a settled place. It says he settled there. He settled there. Now, we have to step back for a minute and understand this. We know the full story. We have the full view of his story. He's creating his own story as we speak, verse by verse. He didn't know what the future looked like. We read this and we know, hey, your life's going to change at any moment. You just don't know it yet. You're going to lead the people out of captivity. He had no idea. He was settled in a place. What happens when you settle in a place? Just like those trees we talked about, the roots go deep. I've been in Lodi now for almost 20 years. We have deep roots here. I was pastoring a church in Stockton for 15 years. We had deep roots in that city, in that church, right? We had deep roots. He was settled, which means he was rooted there. He was rooted there, and he probably had a belief system that the best of his life had already happened, that he was going to live the same day over and over again and call that a life. He gets up and, hugs his wife and hugs his kids and grabs his lunch, and he goes back to work again, day in, day out. His day looked like the previous day. His month looked like the previous month. His year looked like the previous year, year after year. He was reliving the same year over and over again and calling that his life. Little did he know God was up to something, but he was settled in this place. He was settled there. Now, I want to prophetically equate this scripture to where we are at right now. I believe the church is in a settled place. I believe somewhere along the way, the church has settled into a methodology, a system. Or let me say this, the church has settled into a wineskin that is no longer effective, but we're settled in this paradigm. We're settled in systems. We're settled in how we've always done it. We're settled in how evangelical Christianity has done it for 50, 60, 70, 80, maybe even 100 years. We're settled in this place, right? He was settled in that place. Here's the thing. We know what's coming. We know out of this, he's going to have an encounter that would change his life forever. But here's the tragedy here. He chose to settle on the wrong side of his destiny. There was the burning bush, and we'll get to that, but he chose to settle on the wrong side of his destiny. He settled in a place that wasn't his to settle. His destiny was on the other side of a circumstance that he didn't know was going to happen. So before you settle, get this please, somebody, before you decide to settle and put your roots anywhere, you had better ask the Father, is this my place to settle? Don't assume it's your place to settle. Get a word from God that it's your place to settle, because so many people settle in a place that's not theirs to settle, right? Let me give you one more example. The Lord's breathing on this. Terah, Abraham's father, right? He was on his way to Canaan, the family. They were on their way. They were traveling there. I'm paraphrasing, right? It says they stopped in Haran. They stopped in Haran. I don't know why they stopped in Haran. Maybe it was like a family road trip and they needed to, get out and stretch and give the kids some snacks and then water the animals. I don't know, but they stopped. If you look at a map, Haran is about the halfway point to Canaan. And if you read the scripture, it says Terah settled in that place and he died in that place. Halfway was not his place to settle, but something caused him to settle in that place halfway to his destiny. He settled on the wrong side of his destiny. You see? Moses was settling on the wrong side of his destiny. And so here we come to probably a more popular passage of scripture, and it's Exodus 3, 1 through 10. And I'm going to read probably through 7 or 8. It says this, and this is the burning bush encounter. Now, I know we've read this verse. If you grew up in church, everyone understands the burning bush. I mean, it's a cool story as a kid. I mean, the wonder and awe of it, a bush that didn't burn up and, it's on fire, but it never consumed. And I mean, it's amazing. It's a sign that would make you wonder. But it says this. It says, one day, Moses was tending the flock of his father-in-law, Jethro. This is the place he settled, okay? Remember that. The priest of Midian. He led the flock into the wilderness and came to Sinai, the mountain of God. There the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a blazing fire. Now, hear this, please. From within the middle of a bush. Moses stared in amazement. Though the bush was engulfed in flames, it didn't burn up. This is amazing, Moses said to himself. Why is this bush burning up? I must go see it. And when the Lord saw Moses coming to take a closer look, God called to him from within the middle of the bush and said, Moses, Moses. And Moses said, here I am. Do not come any closer. The Lord warned, take off your sandals, for you're standing on holy ground. He says, I'm the God of your father, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Now, I'm gonna stop that, because it goes into his assignment. He says, I'm going to, use you to set the people free, right? We understand that. But there's so much here that I don't want to miss. He was in a settled place. God had to do something to get him unsettled. See, part of the shaking we're feeling, the violent shaking that we are feeling, it's to get us unsettled. It's because we've settled somewhere along the way. Because the church is settled, he has to do something unusual to get us unsettled, to get us to move with him, to get us to flow with him. See, an unusual circumstance for Moses was this burning bush. It was crazy. He was minding his own business, doing whatever he was doing day in, day out, the same day over and over again, right? It was going to look like just another day. And then he sees this bush and it hijacks his attention. It got all of his attention. He sees this bush on fire and he says, what's going on? And literally he goes to take a closer look. And the Bible says this, we just read it. It says, God saw that he was coming closer to take a closer look. God used the burning bush to pull Moses out of one season to position him for the next. I hope you get that. I know you get that. He used the burning bush to pull him out of one season to prepare him for the next. Think about that for a minute. Could it be that God is pulling the church, he's pulling sons and daughters out of one season, one paradigm, come on, one way of doing church to prepare us for what's coming? It says that God spoke to him and called out to him from within the middle of the bush, from within the middle of this crazy circumstance, this crazy thing that was happening. From the middle of this bush on fire, God spoke from the middle of it. And I read that, and I couldn't help but to think, could this pandemic, in a weird way, prophetic way, we'll say not weird, a prophetic way, be our burning bush? Could God be using the pandemic to pull the church, to pull his sons and daughters from one season to position us for what's next? Because the burning bush was a season between two seasons. Understand that. The burning bush in the life of Moses was an actual season. It was a short season, but nonetheless, it was a season. And remember, we have to understand the season so we know what to do, so we don't run from the very thing God's trying to do. God had to do something to pull him out because his roots were so rooted and so deep. A simple invitation wasn't going to cut it. God had to do something radical to pull him, to position him, to tell him, to invite him into a new season. Now, I don't want to say God caused the pandemic. I will not say that. That goes against his very nature, right? He's not going to do that. But I will say this, it is possible if we are looking and listening, we might find God right smack dab in the middle of it, trying to woo his church from one outdated season to get us ready for what's next. So prophetically speaking, if you're taking notes, put this down, write this down, but understand this, the pandemic in sorts is the season between old wineskin and new wineskin. Come on. It's the season. This is a season. What do we know about seasons? This should get somebody excited and cause somebody to run around the church, the living room, the beach, the ocean, the taco truck, somewhere. You're going to run, right? Seasons. One thing we know, we don't know how long they will last, but we do know they will end. Come on. This season, this pandemic season, it's going to end. But the question is, what are we going to look like on the other side of it? Are we going to be in position to go do everything God is inviting us to do? Or are we going to get so comfortable and familiar with our old wineskin that we're going to stay on the wrong side of our destiny? And many, because of familiarity, they're going to stay on the wrong side of what God is trying to do. But there's going to be some that stay in it. They're like, hey, you got my attention, God. Where are you in this? I'll endure the pain. I want you to think of it like this. I shared with our church the other day, our leaders. I said, it's the season between wineskins, right? It's an actual season. Therefore, it bears fruit, right? There's a fruit to be bared in this season. And that's important. We have to understand that. But what is it? And so it's like wallpaper, old, outdated wallpaper, right? You're trying to peel it off the wall. Some of it comes off easy, but some of it, it's stuck on there. Like you got to peel it off. You got to rip it off. You got to get the knife out. And you got to get the scraper, and you're scraping that stuff off. That's old wineskin. Some of it we surrendered real easy, the easy stuff, right? It was easy to give up. But there's some stuff, there's some wallpaper, methodology, belief systems that are stuck to our heart that God's trying to peel off in this pandemic season that we can't afford to take into the new season. Come on. So you might be feeling some pain. You might be feeling some discomfort. Why? Because the Father is putting his finger on some things that you've been so comfortable and become so familiar with year after year after year. And now he's saying, if you want to really step into the new, then you're going to have to let me rip off the rest of the old. And I'm going to tell you what, there were some things in my personal life that I was holding on to as a leader, right? And I was like, God, I know we're in the new. And I got tired of telling our church and telling everybody I spoke to, man, it's a new thing. It's a new thing. And then people would ask, well, what is it? And I would say, I don't know. So finally, I'm like, Father, what is it? Give me a glimpse. Let me tell them something beyond I don't know. Because I'm tired of hearing myself say I don't know. And he says, until you have ripped off all the old wallpaper, you're never going to know. And I said, Father, what's the old wallpaper? And I'll tell you what, guys, again, questions are powerful. He didn't hesitate. He just said, here it is. And he told me. He began to reveal to me. There's several things. I said, okay, Father, rip it off. And he began to painfully rip it off. And I'm like, I'm not going down like, oh, cool and calm. I'm like, no. I mean, I remember when God did that, for us, and God gave us that. And I remember that was an answer for prayer. And now you want us to like give it up? Like, come on, God. You want us to walk away from that, and you want us to do this, and you want me to surrender that, and now you want what? But the minute I said, take it, he began to pour out the new wine, and I began to see more clear than ever what God is doing in the now, preparing for the future. See, but it took some unusual things to get our roots loose so we can begin to move with him in this season. You see, at Moses, he, as I've already said, was on the wrong side of his destiny. Think about that. Think about how many people, when this is all said and done, they're going to be on this side of the pandemic. You see, God is trying to get the attention of the church. He's trying to get the attention of the church. Now, I don't know what the conditions are in the Cayman Islands, but here we can't have church, guys. I mean, we literally can't go into the building. I have one friend, they locked him out of his church. I mean, the authorities did. Just craziness. I'm not going to go into all of that. But here's the deal. Instead of like picketing and rioting and protesting and all these things people are doing, can we just step back and say, as children of God, Father, what are you trying to do in this season? See, some people think this is trying to end the church, and I'm like, it's trying to like cause the church to go viral, which isn't the popular thing. I mean, could it be that God wants us on the other side of our doors for this moment? To let us see that, our church service is one small slice of the bigger thing that we do? I mean, could it be God trying to position the church and get the church in place for what's coming? To get the church, in position to really meet the many needs that are in our communities, and we would no longer have to assume what the needs are. We're going to be immersed in our communities again, being the light and being the answer and being the solutions for the Father, being the extension of the hands of heaven and just showing up and meeting the needs of our neighbor. I mean, could it be that God, because here's my belief, and this is my opinion. Now, you don't have to like this, but you have to love me, okay? Let's settle that. How do I say this? I'm going to move over here, guys, because my computer is about ready to die. So let's go on a little journey. Look at that. I'm a mobile church right now. I'm mobile. Did we survive the move? All right. Sorry about that. And it's one of those technology days. All right. I apologize. The Bible says you have to forgive me. All right. But I believe, and I'm going to say this, I believe the Father, I have a theology that says this. It says that God can stop all this right now, because we have a theology that believes that God caused the sun to stand still because a man dared to ask. We have a theology that says, he can turn water into wine. We have a theology that says he can raise the dead. We have a theology that says he can, heal blind eyes and cause the crippled to walk. We have a theology that believes he can calm any storm. We have a theology that believes he can split any sea. We have a theology that believes that. And if he can do that, then he can put his finger on the pause button, the quit button on all of this, and everything can go back to normal. But the very fact, guys, that he isn't doing that tells me that he wants us to get something, that he wants us to understand something. Now, I'm going to really land this plane, because I know you're getting ready for lunch. How do I say this? I'm not going to say it. That's how I'm going to say it. I'm not going to say that. I'll maybe in a minute. But the fact that he is not, we need to ask the question, why? Here's what happened. Okay, I'll go ahead in a second, say it nicer now. In California, I'll just speak to California. Okay, that's where I live. The church doors started open again. People are allowed to go back to church a little bit. And here's what happened, guys. Everybody, almost everybody that I know, small church or large church, didn't matter, ran back and began to do things the way they've always done it. Think about this. If we don't understand the time, if we don't understand the season, if we don't truly understand what this thing is really about, right? We would think that's about just continuing on as we always have. If that's the case, then why did God put the entire world on pause, the entire worldwide church on pause for, not on pause, but, caused it to look different for him? Why then? Why? And these people, and I have some of my good friends, they run back and, do things. And there's nothing wrong with meeting in a church. Hear my heart. It wasn't them just running back to a church building. They were running back and doing the things they have always done the way they've always done it. This is how you do church. You show up and you do it this way. This way, church had become a template. And a template can only produce the same thing over and over again. I mean, we make Christmas cookies at Christmas time at our house. And we have a Christmas tree cookie cutter. And we get the dough and we use it over and over. It makes nothing. It can't make anything but a cookie tree. It makes Christmas tree, not cookies. Christmas tree cookies. I hope you understand what I'm saying. It makes the same thing. It's a pattern. It's a template. It only can produce what it is. And so what's happening is this. We've been locked into a template, a system, a way of doing things. People are running back to do it the way they've always done. And the problem is we're going to produce what we've always produced, and we're going to miss what God is doing on this side of the pandemic. And then we're going to wonder, God, where are you? And then we're going to have prayer meetings. God, we want more of you. And he's like, I was pouring out everything in the season, but you missed it because I came away you didn't think. So what I said the other day to some leaders, it didn't go over so well, but you guys, I can tell you're some nice people, right? I said, I never had to retake any test when I was in school, never had to take any test that I passed. The only test I had to retake were the tests that I flunked. And I'm like, okay, so the church doors are open again. I'm speaking to California, not the Cayman Islands. Church doors are open, kind of. There's more freedom. People ran right back to where they came from. And then within 3 weeks, they totally closed our doors again at even a higher level than before. Here's the deal. We have a chance to retake the test. We have a chance to get it right. God's trying to get our attention. God's trying to get our attention and understand that there's been a shake and we're in transition. This pandemic is a season between seasons. It's the season between the old skin and the new skin. Either we're going to stay in the old or we're going to embrace it and get into the new. He was in the middle of the bush, and I believe he's in the middle of this pandemic. We'll find whatever we're looking for. I told my family the other day, I said, we're going to find God in this. He didn't cause this, and he didn't cause the hurt and pain. He didn't cause that, but we're going to find him somewhere in the middle of this. And he's inviting some people. He's inviting some ministers and ministries to partner with him that will actually walk with him. And he's going to invite us and lead us out of some methodologies that have almost become sacred cows within the church. Things we've done for so long, methodologies that we've used for so long. But like the wallpaper, it looked good for a season, but now it's outdated and needs to come off the wall. But for churches like Journey that are going to endure it and embrace it, you're going to come on the other side of this pandemic ready to step into the fullness of the destiny that the Father has for your church. And I want to release this to you. For such a time as this, you see, what has happened in the old wineskin, the old paradigm, success in ministry was how big is your church? How many people are you running? How many missionaries are you supporting? It was in quantity and size. On this side of the pandemic, as we step into a new paradigm, the new wineskin, success in ministry is no longer defined by how big is your church. It is defined by this: impact and influence. Impact and influence. Jesus turned the world upside down with 12. What makes us think he needs 1,200? Nothing wrong with 1,200, but what I'm saying is this: we can be like young Davids and go face the giants as young men and young women and not wait till we grow up, right, and have everything we think we need, right? So we're understanding that, but I'm going to end with this. Ask you 2 questions. What are you carrying around right now? Because remember, there was the shaking, and part of the shaking was to shake off the fruit, loosen our roots, and to get off the dead, shake off the dead things that no longer bared fruit in life, the old twigs, the old leaves. What are you carrying around that you cannot afford to take into the new season? What are you carrying around right now? What belief system? What paradigm? What thought process? What pain? What hurt? What letdown? There's many, they're scared to have hope because they've had the bottom fall out, so they want to get excited, but they can't get excited. And there's someone watching this morning, and you're like, man, I want to get excited, but every time I do, the bottom falls out, and I experience letdown after letdown. I'm getting excited thinking about what God's going to do, but I don't want to get my hopes all the way up because the bottom's going to fall out again, as it always says. I want to prophesy to you, no, it's not. I want to say, get your hopes all the way up. The bottom's not going to fall out this time. It's not going to fall out this time. But what are you carrying around that you cannot afford to carry into this new season? That's the question. And ask the Holy Spirit. I've had several Christians tell me, more than several, tell me, oh, God's dealt with me. There's nothing left. Oh, man. I've asked him the same question. I keep asking him, what's left? What's left? What am I carrying around? What can I not afford to take into me? What's the thing I'm carrying that's going to spoil the fruit of this new season? Because what's going to happen is the pandemic's going to lift and shift, and we're going to be on the other side of it. But what is the church going to look like? What position are the sons and daughters going to be in? Are we going to have already been taking ground in this season? Or are we going to have to make up ground in this season? Now, the other question I want to leave you with is this. What are you carrying currently that you need to take with you? So you don't have to get rid of everything, because as I watched that tree get violently shook, there were some branches that still bared fruit, and they stayed. They weren't dead. They had life in them. There's some things that, you know what, you're carrying that they still have life on them. Don't cut off the life sources. Don't cut off. Because what's happening is this. It's the pruning and cutting. You prune what you want to grow back, the things that bear life, and you cut off the things that don't bear fruit. So what do you need to prune and what do you need to cut? And God will reveal it to you. God will reveal it to you. Wow. And then the third thing I want you to ask is this. Ask the Father, what's my purpose in this time? What's my purpose in this time?
Wow.
So guys, that's it. I'll leave you with that. And I pray that it brings some language, some clarity, some excitement, some joy, some anticipation. Wow. I hope some of you are getting your hopes all the way up. But it's a good season to be part of the Journey family. I believe you're in the shallows. You're in the shallows of the greatest outpouring, the greatest moment of your church.
Come on. Well, Lance, we just agree with that word. What a word. I mean, stay on with for the closing. We're wrapping up now, guys. And as your pastor, as I sat here through this message, and I was taught, I was encouraged, I was corrected, I was affirmed, I was reset, I was tweaked, all those emotions in the last 45 to 50 minutes, as I sat here and hear the passion and hear the vision and hear the mission and hear the courage that you're inviting us into, Pastor Lance, to really champion the move of God in a different way that we ever seen before. Behold, I'm doing a new thing. He's using a new template that's not created yet. He's using a new cookie cutter that we haven't baked cookies with. And I so appreciate you. We champion you. We bless Inspired Church. We bless your word today. I mean, and we're going to look at the comments together afterwards, but I'm pretty sure that you gave people permission to grow. You gave people permission to really examine and see what needs to be shaken, to let go so they can grow. And you gave this leader hope that we're doing the right thing by being patient, by allowing God every step of the way into our process and encouraging people to be flexible and adaptable, because we are having church right now. We are universally coming together. We are breaking ground. There's people in the islands that are tuning in for you. People that don't come to our church that are being blessed right now. There are people on your side in California that are seeing our partnership, and in the States as well. We just want to say, God bless that. Brother, I love you.
Hey, we love you too.
I thank you for your time, guys. You have no idea what it took. Rescheduling, resending links to be here today to do this message with you. I told him, I said, brother, whatever it is, we need to get this message done. We need to impact Journey Church in the world today. And I'm so glad you were faithful, brother. All right?
Yeah.
Come
Love
on,
you guys.
Guys, say a hello real quick in the comments to Pastor Lance, and do follow him on Facebook and Inspire Church and see what he's doing there in Lodi, California. I want to just thank everyone that tuned in today. Thank you for your giving. Thank you for your encouragement. Thank you for hanging on. It was easy this week because we had such a profound now word from Pastor Lance, and I just love that I sat back and received, and I got notes to look over. Got my notes here, guys. I hope you were taking notes. I got my notes here of the message from this man of God. So watch the replay, share with a friend, and we'll see you next week. God bless you, Journey family. You want to close us out with a God bless you, brother?
Hey, God bless you guys. Love you. Cannot wait to meet you in person.
All right. See you soon. Peace.